There were civilizations that did not fall with fire, nor vanish beneath invading armies. They did not scream as they collapsed. They simply faded. Their streets once echoed with footsteps. Their markets once pulsed with voices. Their temples once held meaning. And yet one day, silence took their place. The collapse did not begin with chaos. It began quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a shadow stretching across the land. No single moment marked the end. No witness could point and say, it began here. But something shifted, something subtle, and by the time anyone realized, the world they knew was already slipping away. In these forgotten societies, life once followed predictable rhythms. Farmers rose with the sun, merchants weighed their goods in crowded squares, children learned traditions passed down through generations. The systems that held everything together were not questioned. Water flowed, crops grew, trade routes remained open. Stability became invisible, like the air people breathed without thinking. These civilizations did not see themselves as fragile, they saw permanence. But permanence is often an illusion carefully built on countless unseen dependencies, each one capable of failing without warning. At first the changes were small enough to ignore. A river that no longer flooded as expected. Harvests that came slightly weaker each year. Trade caravans that arrived later than usual, carrying less. There were explanations, of course. Temporary disruptions, natural variations, nothing to cause alarm. Leaders reassured their people, and the routines continued. But no one understood what was coming next. Because the danger was not in the individual changes, but in how they began to align, slowly tightening around the foundations of the society. As the years passed, the signs multiplied. Soil lost its richness. Forests thinned. Wells needed to be dug deeper. What once required little effort now demanded more labor, more time, more resources. But adaptation came at a cost. Communities stretched themselves thinner to maintain the same level of output. Systems that once operated effortlessly began to strain under pressure. And yet from within, it still looked like continuity. The market still opened. The illusion of normality remained intact. But beneath that surface, tension was building. Resources became unevenly distributed. Some regions struggled more than others, creating subtle imbalances. Trade networks, once reliable, began to fracture under the weight of scarcity. Trust weakened. Decisions that once seemed logical now carried unintended consequences. Attempts to stabilize one area often destabilized another. And still, no single moment signaled disaster. The collapse did not announce itself. It unfolded quietly, step by step, disguised as adaptation. Leaders faced impossible choices: conserve resources or expand production, protect local stability or maintain distant alliances. Each decision came with trade-offs that were not immediately visible. Policies meant to solve short-term problems often accelerated long-term decline, but these outcomes were not obvious at the time. From their perspective, they were preserving order, maintaining balance. Yet with each choice, the margin for recovery narrowed. By the time the signs became clear, it was already too late to reverse them. Then came the phase where systems no longer compensated for failure. They amplified it. A poor harvest no longer meant a difficult year. It meant hunger spreading across regions. A disrupted trade route no longer caused inconvenience. It severed lifelines. Communities that once supported each other began to withdraw inward, prioritizing survival over cooperation. Social cohesion weakened. The invisible threads that held society together began to fray, one by one. The change in daily life became undeniable. Markets grew quieter, shelves emptied more quickly, labor intensified but results diminished. People adapted in small ways, rationing food, altering routines, abandoning traditions that required resources they no longer had. But these adaptations came with psychological costs. The sense of stability eroded, uncertainty replaced confidence, and still there was no single catastrophic event, only a slow, relentless narrowing of possibilities. Migration began quietly. Families moved in search of better conditions, often finding the same struggles elsewhere. Settlements thinned, infrastructure decayed without maintenance, roads became harder to travel, communication slowed, the once connected world fragmented into isolated pockets, each dealing with its own version of the same decline. But no one saw the full picture. Each community believed its hardship was local, temporary, solvable. The larger collapse remained invisible from within. Over time, institutions lost their authority, not through rebellion, but through irrelevance. Systems designed for stability could not function in instability. Rules no longer matched reality. Enforcement weakened. Traditions faded not because they were rejected, but because they became impossible to sustain. The identity of the civilization itself began to dissolve. What once defined it, its culture, its structure, its continuity, slowly disappeared without a clear moment of loss. Eventually, silence replaced complexity. Cities did not burn, they emptied. Structures remained, but their purpose vanished. Fields were abandoned, not destroyed. The collapse left no dramatic ruins, only absence. It was not an ending marked by violence, but by withdrawal. Life did not stop, it moved elsewhere, fragmented into smaller, simpler forms. The civilization, as a unified system, simply ceased to exist. Centuries later, traces remain, ruins without clear explanations, artifacts without context, histories that feel incomplete. From the outside, it is tempting to search for a singular cause, a disaster, an invasion, a mistake. But the truth is more complex. These collapses were processes, not events. But they were the result of countless small shifts, each one manageable on its own, but devastating when combined. And so the most unsettling question lingers, not how these civilizations fell, but how long they continued believing they hadn't. Because the silent decline does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It unfolds gradually, beneath awareness, hidden within normality. And by the time it can no longer be ignored, there is nothing left to save.